Chapter 10. The Coming of Galahad to Court. It was 20 years since the founding of the Round Table. All that time the Siege Perilous stood empty. Sir Launcelot sat on one side of it, and different knights at different times on the other. Now unknown to anyone, the day and the night for whom it was made had come. On the vigil of Pentecost, the entire court and the knights of the Round Table were gathered at the great feast. As they assembled in the hall for dinner, a lady came riding fast on a leathered horse. She hurried into the hall and went straight to the king and asked for Sir Launcelot. She said she came from Pels, Lord of Carbonek, and must ask him to come with her into a forest. Sir Launcelot's dark eyes rested long on the lady's face. He remembered Elaine and the enchanted cup of wine. Was it another trick? "What do you want me to come for?" he asked. "You will know when you get there," she answered. It was not the kind of answer that a deceiving person would make up. "Well," he said slowly, "I will come with you." While he was getting ready, people ran to tell the queen that he was going to see Elaine again. But the queen was wiser now than in the days when wagging tongues could make her believe ill of Sir Launcelot. The love between them now was sure and safe from mischief. He came to take leave of her, and promised to be back by dinner time the next day. Then he rode away with his squire and the lady. They rode fast through a forest and came to an abbey. A great company of nuns came to greet them and made Sir Launcelot welcome. He realized that some strange event must be about to happen. As soon as he was unarmed, 12 nuns came in, and with them was a young lad of about 15, the most beautiful lad that Sir Launcelot had ever seen. In his eyes was a look of natural truth and affection, and he carried himself easily and simply. The nuns brought the youth to Sir Launcelot and said that he was Galahad. His father stood amazed, but with a deep joy. He exchanged greetings with his son, while all the nuns wept. "Sir," they said, "we bring you this child whom we have cherished, and we pray you to make him a knight, for there is no more worthy man in the world from whom he could receive the order of knighthood." "Does he wish this himself?" asked Sir Launcelot. Galahad answered, "Yes." "Then he shall receive the order of knighthood on the high feast." So when midnight was past, the entire sisterhood gathered in the chapel, and at the first hour of Whitsunday, by the light of 100 candles, Sir Launcelot gave his son the order of knighthood. He had been tricked into marrying Elaine, and so broke his knightly vow to be true to the queen. Now he knew that he had moved on into a deeper state, where good came out of evil. As Galahad knelt at the altar step before him, Sir Launcelot felt nothing but love for him and for his birth, and for the agonies of madness and loss that he himself had suffered because of it. It was the first of those states of love that Galahad was to bring about in the world. The morning Sir Launcelot kept his promise to the queen. That morning Sir Launcelot kept his promise to the queen and returned to Camelot for the feast. As the knights took their seats at the round table, there was a stir of excitement, for new golden letters shone around the Siege Perilous. They read, "This siege is to be fulfilled." A staggering thought struck Sir Launcelot. Could it be that his son Galahad was the mysterious figure for whom the Siege Perilous had been waiting all these years? He would wait and see. "I suggest," he said to the others, "that this writing should be covered up until the man comes who will fulfill all of this." So they threw a silk cloth over the seat and hid the writing. Then the king gave word for dinner. But just as he was going to seat himself, a squire came running in and knelt before him and said, "Sire, down there by the river there is a great stone floating on the water, and I saw a sword sticking up out of it." "A stone and a sword?" King Arthur remembered the sword and the stone that 20 years ago had given him his throne. "I will see this marvel," he said, and went down the castle walks to the river bank. Everyone in the hall followed in a long procession. On the water floated a block of red marble, and out of it rose a fine sword. In its jeweled hilt was carved, "Only he by whose side I ought to hang shall take me, and he shall be the best knight of the world." The king turned to his friend Sir Launcelot, clapped him on the shoulder, and said that surely the sword was his. Sir Launcelot smiled, but answered gently, "Sire, it is not my sword. I am not going to put my hand to it, for I know it is not for me. I am sure that some great thing will begin today." The king looked around, doubtful whom to call on to attempt the sword. Perhaps Gawain, his nephew, who was always trying to rival Sir Launcelot, would have a chance now. "Nephew," said the king, "will you try?" Sir Gawain looked at Sir Launcelot and at the sword and at all the watching faces. He was afraid to fail. "Sire," he replied, "excuse me, I would rather not." King Arthur knew he wanted to be urged. "Sir, for my sake, and at my command, try to take the sword." "Sire, at your command I will obey," answered Gawain. He stepped onto the bank, a splendid figure in purple and gold, his red hair shining, his face white with excitement. He grasped the sword, but it held fast. Stiff with humiliation, Sir Gawain stepped back. The king knew that someone else must fail too, to save his nephew's pride. He called on Sir Percival, who set little store on pride. He tried and failed and stepped back smiling. Then the king decided to leave the sword for the moment and go back to the feast. They all took their places once more in the hall, and dinner proceeded. Suddenly, with a clap like thunder, all the windows and doors closed, yet the light did not dim at all. There was dead silence, and every heart was afraid. The voice of the king spoke cheerily. "Fair fellows and lords, we have seen marvels today, but before night we shall see greater ones." As he spoke, in came an old man dressed in white, unknown to anyone in the hall. He led with him a young knight in red armor, with only an empty scabbard by his side. Sir Launcelot's heart moved. He had seen the young knight at midnight. No one else knew him or had ever seen him before. The old man led him to the king and said, "Sire, I bring you here a young knight by whom the marvels of this court shall be accomplished." "Sire," said the king, standing up, "you are right. Welcome, and the young knight with you." The old man helped the knight to take off his armor. Under it he wore a tunic of scarlet linen, and the old man hung on his shoulders a cloak edged with white fur. Then he said to the young man, "Sir, follow me." He led him to the round table, to the Siege Perilous. Everyone saw Sir Launcelot in the next seat exchange a greeting with the stranger. The old man lifted up the silk cloth, and the writing on the chair had changed to, "This is the siege of Sir Galahad." "Sir," said the old man, "that place is yours." In dead silence the young knight sat down. Sir Launcelot drew a sharp breath. Nothing happened. The lad sat easily, looking around him quite naturally at the faces of famous knights. Then he turned and said good-bye to the old man, who left the hall. Everyone began to talk again, and dinner went on. But now the news was buzzing around that the name of the new knight was Galahad, and so he must be Sir Lancelot's son. The old story of Sir Lancelot and the tricked marriage with Elaine was told again. People slipped out of the hall and ran to the Queen's apartments with the news, swearing the newcomer was exactly like Sir Lancelot. The Queen answered, "I should like to see him. He must be a noble man, for so is his father." After dinner, the king took Sir Galahad down to the river to see the sword in the marble rock. The queen saw the company going out, and she gathered her ladies and went too. The king told Sir Galahad what an extraordinary object it was, and how several famous knights had failed to draw the sword. Sir Galahad looked surprised. "Sire, is it not extraordinary?" he answered politely. "Because the adventure is not theirs, but mine. I knew this sword would be here, so I did not bring one. But here is the scabbard." It was indeed the scabbard that Merlin had left on the island, that could be reached only by a bridge 6 inches wide. No one knew how Galahad had won it, and he said no more about it. Galahad took hold of the hilt and drew the sword out as easily as the young lad Arthur had done 20 years ago in a London churchyard. He slid it into the scabbard and said, smiling, "It is better there than in the stone." Then he took it out again and looked at it up and down admiringly. "It is the sword of Sir Balin the Savage, the great fighter," he said proudly. "With it he killed his brother Sir Balan by mistake." He went on to tell the king the story, and the king smiled at Sir Lancelot, for they had known of the events Sir Galahad spoke of before he was ever born. But the adventures of the day were not over yet.